This is Honors 1000. This is week 13. And this is how we would welcome you in Klingon.
Klingons are not the most welcoming species, but the closest translation I've been able to find for you all is Yel Hoch.
So welcome to week 13. 13 is not considered a lucky number, at least in American culture. But in this case, it is going to be your lucky week, because while we had planned initially to spend the week talking at great detail about Detroit's current state and economic outlook, we're actually not going to do that. You can see I've got a new toy, my stylus, which lets me write on the screen even as I sit back away from my computer. And so I'm going to use this stylus to cross out what we were going to do and to introduce something we are going to do instead. And that is, we're going to use this week to talk about giving thanks. And I really want to deal quickly with the question of what we have to be thankful for. And when I say quickly, the first thing that you all are going to have to be thankful for is that the plan for this week looks a little bit like this. We're going to start with video 13A, and then we're going to stop with video 13A. So that actually is going to be all that we're going to do. There's nothing else that we're going to do except for this video. And even this video, frankly, is optional. If you got to go do something else, take the turkey out of the oven, take the tofu out of the oven, whatever else it is you're going to do, I completely understand. But I do want to talk about some really important questions this week. So if you got 7 minutes, give me your time on that. I think it'll be worth it. Because the 4 questions that I want to deal with are actually 4 absolutely critical questions for our lives. And it's a good time to think about these when we are surrounded by family and friends, if not physically, then virtually. Because I want to ask you to think about what it is you enjoy, what it is you excel at, what you think needs to be done, and what you expect you could get paid for. Those are the kinds of questions I think that can form a life, that can form a career path, that can form an identity. And you may have seen these questions before. They're often arrayed in a kind of circular pattern, and sometimes even in a diagram that looks like this, a sort of Venn diagram that then combines the overlap. So what you're good at and what you love, it calls your passion. What you love and what the world needs, it calls your mission. What the world needs and what you get paid for, it calls a vocation. And what you're good at and the world needs, it would call a profession. And in many cases, these Venn diagrams put at the center of that an unfamiliar word for many of you called ikigai. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. If you know Japanese, tell me so that I can pronounce it right next time. But all of these are somehow included in that rubric, and ikigai has been celebrated of late in American culture by a number of books and websites and podcasts and TED Talks as a Japanese way of life that produces a long and happy existence. Unfortunately, the questions that are asked here about what you're good at, what you love, what the world needs, and what you can get paid for, many people would argue as not technically ikigai. And in fact, there is an author who's working on the question of ikigai who has actually posted on his website a warning that this is not ikigai. He says these are good questions, they are useful, but they were applied to ikigai by people who didn't really understand the underlying Japanese concept. I also don't understand the underlying Japanese concept, though it sounds quite appealing to me. So I'm going to work with the questions that are here, knowing that these are only vaguely related to ikigai, but that they're still useful. I also want to note that there needs to be another warning label on this, because that is not a good Venn diagram. Why not? Well, the top part and the bottom part of that Venn diagram don't link. You can't just do circles overlapping unless you really think about it. So how could you do a Venn diagram with 4 different elements and get all of those 4 elements so that you get every one of the 16 possible combinations of overlap or non-overlap? Well, it turns out that the world is full of incredibly creative people who have done this. So this is at least 6 different ways to create a Venn diagram with 4 different elements. The one that I like the most, largely because of its symmetry and because of the nature of the shapes, is the one down in the center, though keep in mind we could use any of these. And what we can do is we can take this new and improved Venn diagram And we can try and answer those questions. So we can look at questions of financial gain and questions of ability and questions of passion and questions of duty. We can put all of those together in this same context. I want to start with a place that lots of students start at, or more to the point, lots of students' parents start at when they're trying to get you to think about what you want to do with your life. And so oftentimes the first question you'll hear is, well, how are you going to live on that? How are you going to pay the bills? And then loving parents will also ask, well, what are you good at? What's going to make that sustainable over time? And together, those two things, I think, produce a realm of security. You know that you can live on it, and you know that you can do it, but it is a kind of security that may not necessarily have other elements that are important. It is, I would say, security without a certain kind of enthusiasm. And what's going to give you enthusiasm? Well, you're going to get enthusiastic if you love to do it, or you're going to get enthusiastic if it's what the world needs. Both of those are potential sources of enthusiasm. I've learned that enthusiasm is a hugely important part of life. But even when you add those, you still raise some questions. So if you're good at it and it pays the bills, and you love to do it, the question still remains, who's going to be better off because of it? Is it just going to be for your own personal gain, or is there going to be something about it that is needed by the broader world? On the other hand, if it's what the world needs, but you don't love it, then is it something that you really want to do? So we need to somehow find a mixture of these, and the point at which we can add to these all four, what pays the bills, what you're good at, what you love to do, what the world needs. They might call it ikigai. I'm going to just call it wow. Like, that is the best possible place to be when you're thinking about what you want to do with your life. And so the challenge, if you're going to start with that parental question of what's going to pay the bills, and maybe your own question of what you're good at, is to start finding things in those realms that you enjoy, and finding things in those realms with some broader social purpose. Other approaches to this question start on the other side. They start with the question of what you love and what the world needs. They really start with the things you could get excited about, passionate about. But there's no guarantee that those two things together are going to provide you with the kind of security that's going to necessarily be able to let you sustain it, to keep doing it in the long run. And that's why I think we need to also think about questions of what you're good at, although even adding that still raises the question of where the money's going to come from. Or we can look at what pays the bills, but then we can ask the question, if you're not good at it, are you going to be able to sustain it? Again, the goal in this, as in everything, is going to be how do you find that middle ground that's got all four of these, so that in addition to what you love and what the world needs, you can find something that you feel good about doing, that you're good at, and something that is going to pay at least a modicum of the bills. It's going to let you live at least a reasonably comfortable existence. That, I think, is the ultimate goal, and that, again, takes us back to that wow point. And I have to say to you, and I say it with both a certain pride and a certain humility, that this is where I've managed to find myself over time. I don't know if it's visible from these videos, but I really love what I do. And I really feel like it's something that I can provide for everyone else. Now, I'm not sure about those two middle questions. I'm not sure that I'm particularly good at it, certainly not better at it than anybody else. I'm also not sure that it's exactly what the world needs. The world probably needs me out there being much more active in fighting climate change. The world probably needs me much more active out there fighting poverty and systematic racism. But what I do at least seems like it contributes to those, even if it's not directly relevant to those. So I think that my job, what the profession I have found, is somewhere in that middle ground. And I have to tell you, that is an amazing thing that I wish for all of you. I really hope that all of you can find that thing. And toward that end, I want to say to you that my job, behind everything that I've been doing so far this semester and everything that I'll do from here on out, is to help you get to that space. So this class, though it may not seem like it at all times, the consulting that I'm doing with students outside of class, the work we're doing on finding fellowships and scholarships for students, the work we're doing building relationships with Detroit, all of that is to try and help you all find yourself in that same central place. And I want to tell you, this is a lifetime commitment. Maybe not your lifetime, but my lifetime. As long as I am employed at the university, actually as long as I am alive and capable of thinking, and as long as you can find me, and I think I'm going to have the same email for the rest of my life, as long as you can find me, and I can help you with any of those questions and help you find the center of that, that is what I want to spend the rest of my life doing. And so I would really invite you not to hesitate, whether it's 2 months from now, or 2 years from now, or 20 years from now, if there's a way that I can help you as you think about these questions, especially it's related to anything that I'm vaguely good at, questions of politics and policy, problem identification, please get in touch. Please, let's talk about this, because sometimes it just helps to have a listening ear so that you can talk through where you're going and get someone to say, that sounds good, or think about this, or maybe think about that. So, the first thing that I have to be thankful for is my incredible job. And this actually is part of Ikigai, at least it's part of what somebody else made an infographic about on Ikigai. Frankly, I have no idea if these things are Ikigai either, but they all look like really good things, and one of those is to give thanks. So I'm thankful for this amazing job that I have that lets me work with all of you. I'm thankful for the family I have around me who are able to support me and who I am able to support. I'm thankful for a great group of friends, many of whom I met precisely where you are now in the first year of college. I am especially grateful for amazing colleagues, especially the dean and the staff and my senior lecturer colleagues in the Honors College. These are some of the most amazing people I've ever met, and I am thankful for them every day. And I'm thankful for you. Most of you I haven't met, even virtually, most of you I haven't met, but I've corresponded with a lot of you. I've gotten language lessons from a bunch of you. I've gotten questions and annotated selfies from a bunch of you. And I hope against hope that the world returns to some kind of normality where we can speak to one another in person and we can explore this amazing world that we live in. And that's the last thing that I'm really thankful for. I am thankful for a sense of wonder. And every day provides new examples of that sense of wonder. This morning provided in my inbox a picture of what happens when a snow owl catches a mouse in the snow. And I realize this isn't something that the mouse has to be thankful for, but for all the rest of us, especially the owl, this is one of the most beautiful things I have ever seen. And every day brings new beautiful stuff like that. I am thankful that there are people out there who are so into languages and so into storytelling that they have gone ahead and created not just a language but a script for Klingon, and for students who are so dedicated to the odd and unusual things in the world that they learn how to say it and then tell me how to say it in videos. I am thankful that there are people out there who can invent 6 different ways to do a 4-set Venn diagram. I am thankful that there are people out there who are working incredibly hard to make this world a better place. And those are the kind of people that we're going to be talking about for the rest of this course. So what's next? We've got 2 full weeks left, weeks 14 and 15, starting after Thanksgiving. And what we're going to do in those 2 weeks is we're going to think about where we've come from. We're going to wrap up our discussion of Detroit, and we're going to think about where we're headed, and we're going to think about the kind of people who can take us there and the kind of people we can become to help us get there. That's a pretty exciting couple of weeks. So I'm really looking forward to those last 2 sets of videos, and I'm looking forward at some point when we're vaccinated and when we're back together to talking to you all about this in long discussions in one another's presence in the wonder of the world. So with that said, I want to just reiterate my thanks, and I want to say thank you everyone, and I want to let Katie say it in Klingon.
Nu kan